Hi everybody, welcome to OG Soaking and Stitching Island Style. I'm Antoinette, your hostess, and welcome to all returning fiber family. Welcome to new fiber family, and if you're just here for the first time, welcome, and feel free to join the family if you'd like. Just hit the little subscribe button below, click the bell next to it, all, and you'll get notifications whenever I upload a video. Today's video is, I was tagged by Lisa at Ladybird Loves, and her link will be in the description box below for a hashtag unpopular crochet opinions. So what I did was I put up a post on the community tab, and I asked y'all what you know, an unpopular crochet, your opinion. So I'm going to use those. I am going to say, who left a comment for me, and then I'll give you my thoughts on their opinion, and at the end I'll give you one of my opinions. So in the middle of working on wrapping advent boxes, get an early start, but I'll put that away. Nothing, you can't see anything because I have 3 advent boxes to mail out. So I'm just going to, I have them on my tab down here, so I'm just going to pop them up and we will read the first one. The first one is, oops, here we go. I gotta get my page up here. Okay. Autumn Edison says, I like having whips. I didn't at first, but now I love having many projects to work on. Gives me options. Okay, well, I can agree with that, Autumn. I usually have at least a couple pair of socks, a knitting project, a crochet project, and a Tunisian project going, because a couple of reasons. My hands, each technique uses a different set of muscles. So if I'm having, if I'm working on 9-inch circulars with my socks, that's real small and your hands tend to cramp up after a while, then I'll switch to maybe a crochet project with something that's very basic, just mindless dishcloths, scrubbies. Or I'll flip to a Tunisian project, or, and also in that same aspect, it's the size of the project that counts too. There's a popular opinion amongst fiber artists is they want that immediate gratification. So they won't do a large project like a blanket or a complex garment. They do things that are quick and fast and get it done. Then there's others that are in it for the process, and they enjoy the process and then seeing their finished item. So I agree with that, pretty much of the same opinion. Okay. Wriggles, from her little corner of Kentucky, says, I actually like working with novelty yarns such as eyelash, fake fur, chenille, and blanket yarn, to name a few. She loves to untangle yarn, and she likes to do mindless projects with repeated rows, so she can do other stuff at the same time, like read a book. Well, Wriggles, it's a love-or-hate relationship with some of those novelty yarns. There are a lot of people in the fiber community that Hellspun, aka line brand homespun, the eyelash yarn, the fake fur, the big blanket yarn, they don't like to work with it for different various reasons, whether it is the big yarns hurt their hands, or they don't like the feel of the yarn in their hand. With the eyelash yarn, it's being able to see the stitches. I feel for my stitches when I'm using a faux fur or eyelash yarn. I used to use my fingers to feel for the stitches. I find crocheting with those novelty yarns is a lot easier than knitting with them. And mindless projects, I usually have 1 or 2 mindless projects that, like you said, so I can do something else, or I just don't have to think. I'm just taking a break from, maybe I'm working on a complex knitting pattern with cables and lace, and I just want something where I don't have to think. So maybe just sit here, watch some YouTube videos, and just work stockinette stitch and knitting, which is very mindless. It's just knit, 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 flip, purl, 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 or if you're in the run, it's all knit. So yeah, the novelty yarns are unpopular, like the sachet yarn. That I actually enjoy doing the sachet yarn and making scarves, and I've used it for ruffles on garments for little baby girls, and I've made a little skirt for my granddaughter. So never tried homespun though. Homespun. Oops. Homespun. I've never tried it. So, but I have had boucle yarns before, and I'm actually going to be doing a Tunisian project with using some boucle. So let's see who's next. Suzanne from Hooked by Suze says whips. I used to finish projects before starting another. Now I have 5 whips on the go. I like switching back and forth now. Again, someone else that likes to have multiple projects going on. Keep your interest, especially if you're working on, if you are working on, all your projects are mindless, it doesn't challenge you. You want to challenge yourself. So yeah, I totally agree. And some people are monogamous. They start one project and they finish that project until it's done, and then they'll begin anew. And hey, I used to be that way a long time ago, but I got in the habit of having whips. Mind you, I'm cutting down how many whips. I don't want to have more than 5 or 6 going on, and within that 5 or 6, there's usually 1 or 2 blankets and socks. Those are kind of like my, always going on, because blankets are a big project and socks are, always give them for gifts or what have you. So, thank you, Suzanne. Okay, Darlene Lively. She says, one of my biggest problems with crocheting is that there are way too many projects that I want to do, but of course that's not possible. My queue is way backed up. I have learned how to prioritize what will be my next project. Okay, she addresses another one. We all have the list, our stacks of patterns, whether it's in your Ravelry library, on your computer or tablet, or paper patterns, or a combination of the above. And I think that could probably fall into the same categories. All the yarn we have. We have this yarn, we have all these projects we want to do, and there are only so many hours in a day, so many days in a week, so many weeks in a year, and there are only so many years in a lifetime. So if you learn to prioritize, because I'm sure all of us have seen, oh, I want to do that pattern. You're going through Facebook, or you're watching YouTube or Instagram, and you see these patterns, right? Click save, and they stack up. Or you begin 4, 5 different projects. Partially through, it's like, oh, I lost interest. You were excited when you started, but you've now just lost interest, and it goes into Whip Wonderland. So yeah, I think we're all have been at that point or are at that point. And me at 61, I hope, Lord willing, I've got a lot of years left in me, and I will work through my stash, because when I leave this world, I have to dictate who's going to get my tools, my needles, my hooks, and whatever yarn I have left over, and all of my gadgets and stuff that I have. So, I hopefully it'll be somebody that want to carry on. I only have 2 granddaughters, and they're not here, so I can't teach them. But my daughter-in-law has started knitting, so maybe I'll send some of the stuff to her. So, thank you, Darlene. Let's see, who's next? Okay, Marlene Gaston. I try not to have too many whips on the go. Frogging can be annoying, but you got to do it sometimes. I'm not sure what it is more stressful, trying to find the pattern you like, or trying to find the perfect yarn to make the pattern, or have the dollars to buy the perfectly pretty yarn. Oh, Marlene, you have hit on a subject I think that plagues us all. You ask yourself the question, am I shopping for yarn for a specific pattern, or am I just buying the yarn because it's pretty? Do I have enough to get this yarn? Do I buy indie dyed yarn? Do I buy big box store yarn? Or do I buy this yarn because it's on sale? It's a conundrum. I mean, we come across that every day. I try not to look at my emails sometimes, because my inbox gets filled with all the different companies with their sales and that, and I try to be very, very good. And I have not bought any yarn for a while, but I just put an order in that's going to be here today, because I applied to test a pattern for Stephanie Aaron. Yes, I know I said I wasn't going to do any tests, but it's not due to October 10th, and I like the pattern. So I didn't have enough of any of my yarn specifics to make it, so I ordered on sale some Red Heart It's a Wrap. I only ordered 4, and I ordered 2 of another color because I want to do the top part in one color and the bottom part the other color. But and they happen to have some of the Simply Soft yarn that I like really cheap to do DK knitted socks. So yeah, that's a problem. Your budget, and mind you, always remind yourself, stay within your budget. There'll be more sales. That's what I tell myself. It'll be on sale again sometime later this year. Black Friday's later this year. Christmas is later this year. They always have the big sales. So it's not like this is going to be the only time it's on sale. Unless it's a discontinued yarn. Then you have to ask yourself a couple questions. Number 1, is it within my budget? I know it's on sale, but still, is it within my budget? And number 2, do I really need it in my stash? Those are a couple questions you have to ask yourself. So, thank you, Marlene. Next, we have Zara Tavison. I love working with thin yarn and thread. I normally use a hook 1mm to 1.75 millimeters. Once I even used a 0.5 millimeter hook. Well, Zara, let me tell you, you're a better woman than I am. That is how I began using those small steel hooks with my grandmother making doilies. I'm just going to get a little sip of coffee here. I'd say it takes a special person to work with the thread, the crochet thread, and those tiny, tiny, tiny needles. It is truly an art, and the finished products are beautiful. I saw a wedding dress that it took them 2 years to make it, and they did it with a white crochet thread, and it was stunning. That's a lot of love, a lot of time, and I think there was something like 800,000 stitches. It was beautiful. But I think from what I'm just listening and reading from other creators, other fiber artists, that's the exception to the rule, crochet thread. I think more people avoid it, dislike it. I'm not going to use the hate word because it's too strong, but they dislike using with it, or dislike using it. Sorry about that. The phone rang. I have to keep the phone by me. Work calls, fire department, all those good things. Anyways, so the crochet thread is a unique niche in our fiber community. I totally hats off to them. It's a talent. So let's see who's this next. Lisa Dragonfly. I like to untangle yarn. Sometimes it's struggling to untangle, but I still like to do it. I can only have one whip in my hand. I can't start a new project till I totally complete the current one, as I have only short memory and can only remember one pattern for a period of time. Well, that's okay. A lot of people like to untangle yarn. I like to untangle yarn. To me, it's an exercise in patience. My husband says, I just throw that whole mess in the garbage. I said, no, 2 reasons. 1, it costs money. And 2, it would be yarn abuse. It would be a waste of yarn. No, I will sit there and I will just patiently untangle. I mean, you guys know that I'm doing I had frogged the entire elf coat, King Cole Riot, fuzzy yarn, and it's a labor of love, untangling all of this yarn, winding it, and then I'll have to put it up into cakes. But it's just an exercise in patience. I really think it has helped with my patience. It makes me a patient person. So maybe, look at it that way. It's an exercise in patience. Because I know a lot of people that have 0 patience. So maybe it'd be good for them to learn to sit there and untangle yarn. You never know. Might have to try it. All right, let's see who's next. Pamela's Crochet and Knit Corner. I crochet so tight I can't help it, so I have to go up a hook size or 2. Well, Pamela, I'll tell you, people laugh when I'm knitting or crocheting, and any of you can comment in the comments below. Have you ever found yourself that your tension can vary according to your mood, the time of day? I do sometimes what's called angry knitting or angry crocheting. Excuse me. I'll be sitting there and I have my hands so tight in the needles or the hook, and I'm just going and I'm just going. I get a lot accomplished, but it throws off the tension for the entire project. So you end up frogging back what you just did, which then sometimes upsets you. Me, I don't get too upset. I pretty much take things as it comes. But if you crochet tight, that is your style, at least you know to go up a couple hook sizes. That's why gauge swatching is so important for garments. Even blankets, there are some patterns that have gauge swatching that they recommend highly that you do it. It might be because it's a certain size square if you're doing a block Afghan blanket, whether it's knitting or crocheting. But that's why I had talked a while back, I did a video on gauge swatching. I never used to gauge swatch, and I suffered the consequences. So I learned to gauge swatch. It doesn't take that long. I save my swatches, and eventually I might just put them all into some mishmash mix of a blanket, you know, and just call it my my journey blanket. And the thing is, you can look at it, you can look at that swatch and say, I remember that project and I remember that yarn. It's almost like it's a different version of the memory blankets that they have. It's just your journey blanket. It was your journey through your fiber journey, whether it's crocheting, knitting, or combination of both, because I have swatches for just Tunisian crochet and knitting. So, you know, it's something to think about. Just get a box and you make your swatch, and you throw your swatch in the box, and down the line you have yourself a journey blanket. So let's see here. Okay, that was the last one on that one. Let's see. Okay, then I have this. I had a few here. Okay, that one I think was my last post for the for that video. So, what are my opinions? Well, I have a couple. One of a very unpopular crochet opinion is that crochet uses more yarn than knitting. Sometimes it does. But knitting, if you're doing a lot of cables, bobbles, it can be the same thing. So it's, you know, and again, it's with tension and the pattern, the stitch. So, and others have said, well, knitting fabric is so much more pretty than crochet. That's kind of an odd duck. I find that a a knitted sweater, I think, is a more delicate fabric than a crochet. Not saying that it's better. I'm just saying it looks like it has a more delicate appearance. But on crochet, you have some stunning sweaters that are granny squares, or, you know, crochet, the way the pattern that it is, it's just as beautiful as knitting. Crochet, I find, at times is quicker than knitting. But again, this all depends on the pattern, the stitch, the size, the weight of yarn. You know, I mean, you can crochet a number 2 and knit a number 4 and get them done in the same amount of time. I mean, from my standpoint. So there's a lot of factors in, you know, so it's, you know, if you know somebody that's knitting, or, you know, it's like, oh, that's so much prettier, I wish I could do that. Your crochet is just as beautiful. It just depends on all those factors: stitch, fiber weight, what you're making, the project itself. So just remember that. I've seen a lot of memes lately, and it shows a person with a crochet hook in their hand, and they're saying, oh, what are you knitting? And a lot of crocheters get upset, like they're supposed to know the difference between knitting and crochet. A lot of people don't. They just, everything's just, you know, crochet or knit. Everything's knit. My husband used to say all the time, you know, knitting. I said, I'm not knitting, I'm a hooker. I said, I'm crocheting. So down the line, I'd hold my crochet hook up. I'd say, what is this for? He said, that's for crocheting. It's when you're a hooker. I said, And what are these for? Those are your knitting needles. And what's this? Wool. No, this is acrylic. That's another video. So, you know, that's been, I guess, an ongoing conflict between knitters and crocheters. But a lot of people become bi-stitchable or tri-stitchable. You know, you get into, because Tunisian crochet is kind of like the hybrid of knitting and crocheting. You know, and then throw in there your different techniques: mosaic, brioche, you know, doing your color work, fair isle, color block. There are so many techniques and skills, and it's so diverse in all of the fiber techniques. Whether, you know, the fiber crafts. There's people that just loom knit. There's people that use knitting machines all the time. I mean, I have 2 of them, and I've been learning. You know, I've been dabbling here and there with it, just, you know, trying to get some extra time. But don't look down on anybody that just because they're not a tri-stitchable, bi-stitchable, or because they only crochet, or, oh, you're a knitter. You know, there are some knitters who are very snobby. They are. I mean, absolutely. Knitting isn't for everybody. Crochet isn't for everybody. You know, everybody has their special talent. Give the person the respect they're due for the fact that they do enjoy and love fiber like you do. How they get their fabric is just a different technique. So we all have to appreciate each other for our talents and not look down on anybody. The same as another unpopular opinion is you have people that they're yarn snobs. Oh, I would not use that box yarn from Michaels or acrylic. Oh, the thought. A lot of people say, oh, acrylic's plastic, it's bad for the environment. They're recycling plastic into yarn now. So they're recycling. And not everybody has the budget for hand-dyed yarn. And that's a fact. I don't have the budget. I may have a lot of yarn, but my yarn was all bought on sale. And 99% of it is bought from big box stores or online companies. I do not look down on anybody because they buy their yarn at Michael's or they go to the thrift store. That's a way of recycling, repurposing. Okay? There are people that go to the thrift store and look for cashmere, wool, mohair sweaters, and they deconstruct them and they recycle that yarn because that's all they can afford. There's a man on YouTube, that's what he does. And he makes these sweaters for charity. So, or hats or scarves, whatever he does. But I don't think my opinion, and these are all my opinions, okay, that it's right for somebody to look down on somebody else because they don't use indie dyed yarn. Not everybody can pay $35, $40 for a hank of yarn when your pattern's going to call for 10 hanks of yarn. I have only bought hand-dyed yarn one time, and that was for a test pattern I did. And when she sent me the invoice for 3 skeins of yarn, and it was $100, I said never again. I never spent that much until that time, and I never will spend it again. I'm sorry, I just can't afford it. I want to get value for my money and still make, and they make some. They've come so far since our grandmother's days of Red Heart Super Saver with yarn and the processing and everything too. And again, you can read the company's sustainability statement, what their mission is. There's a lot of companies out there that are doing a lot of good. Their carbon footprint has been lowered or completely abolished, or you know, they economically and environmentally eco-friendly resource their processing. So do your homework. I do a lot of reading, but you just have to. It's a decision. It's kind of a personal thing, you know, your choice and stuff. There's some people that are allergic, I understand, and they need to have an alternative to wool, silk, cotton. There are people that are allergic to natural fibers. There are people that are, can't work with acrylic. Every yarn has its place. Every yarn has its niche. So don't look down on somebody because they can't, they don't have indie dyed yarn and they're using acrylic or acrylic blend. I'm sorry, I love my acrylic blends, especially if I'm making baby items. That new mother ain't gonna have time to sit there and hand wash and block an item because it's made with, high-end indie dyed yarn. Personal choice, my opinion. Okay, this whole video is my opinion or the opinions of my fiber family. So, and I think the last thing I'm going to have to say on this is about our tools. Ergonomic versus traditional crochet hooks. Our tools are a personal choice. And sometimes you might have to work up to be able to afford that more expensive set of knitting needles or crochet hooks or Tunisian hooks. Which is how I did it. I started off with some very cheap Wish or dollar store crochet hooks, and I slowly upgraded my crochet hooks. I have a few what I call luxury hooks from Nelson Wood. I have 3 to be exact. I bought 2. One was a gift. But the 2 I bought were, one was a second and the other one was a clearance. Less than $50 a piece. But, those, I saved up for those, and those were special. Something to pass on to somebody. So, unpopular crochet opinion is kind of like a very general hashtag. It's not so much that it's unpopular. It's an opinion. And everybody's entitled to their opinion. You don't... Look, if we were all the same, it'd be boring. There wouldn't be these YouTube channels to show the different sides. If you want to get to know somebody, talk to them. Find out their opinions. They might have an opinion on something that makes you think twice. Like, maybe I should try that. Value people's opinions. Okay? Because they could be a great resource for information, research, knowledge. Knowledge is power. Education is power. So, now that I've bored you for all this time, I am going to end this video because I have to go downstairs and do some accounting schooling. I've been very busy with my SVMO and working and all this crazy stuff. So I do try to get videos out now and then. I put a shorty out the other night. It was just a gorgeous sunset. Try to get some of my advent boxes wrapped because I've got so much clutter around me. I mailed 2 packages off today. There's 2 going on next week. I'm spreading out my mailing every week. And I'm sorry and apologize if you might have to wait a little bit extra for your package, but I've got to do a few at a time. Right now I have 3 that need to be mailed, 2 that'll be mailed out next week, and 1 that will be mailed out later this week, and that's my Happy Mail Advent. That's going to Christina e Bella Uncinetto. All these links will be below. But in the meantime, hug, smiles, and happiness. Pass it on. Make the world a better place. Give that person the smile, the hug, the encouragement that they may need for that day. You'd be surprised how it'll make them feel good, and it makes you feel good just to make another person brighten their day. So here's bye for now from Deer Island, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys, and thank you so much for coming.